Let's have a big HSRCA welcome for Bruce. Thanks, Bruce. Thank you for coming along. Good to see you here. It's great knowledge you have a little office.
Firstly, thanks Gary for the invitation and all the people from the HSRCA. I spoke to my eldest daughter yesterday morning and she said, what are you going to do down there, Dad? She's 33, so she said, have you got anything written down? I said, no, I'll just look at the photos and things will come back to me, hopefully. And that. But one thing I did want to say, and Warwick and I, my designated driver tonight, and probably the fastest designated driver in the Southern Hemisphere, Warwick and I met in unfortunate circumstances. Well, I don't think he remembers that, but it was 73 after his accident in the T300 Lola at Surfers Paradise, and being a New South Wales boy, I thought he wouldn't have too many people coming up to visit him, and I didn't know him at that stage, and I said to Mum and Dad, I said, well, I've got to go up and see this guy. I said he's pretty badly hurt. And so I got to meet his mum up there, and the first night that I went there, and we spoke about this yesterday, and I've got a weak stomach, and I got informed yesterday by Warwick, and so did Colin Bond and that, because luckily the old guy in the bed beside Warwick had passed away that morning, and that because I fainted at that when I smelled the ether and that, I wasn't well. And the doctor come by and he thought I was the patient and Warwick was the visitor. So, but anyway, we've been mates ever since. So close on, what is it, 40 odd years and that. So, and a friendship I treasure, and that we don't live out of each other's pockets and that. But we're good mates, and I always admired him as a driver, and probably one of my heroes in the old days and that. Before I got into 5,000 myself, and it was still a hero after we become mates, and that, just a great driver and a good friend and that. And also, and that, big thank you to Ronnie Eagle, who's one of my long-suffering mechanics from the old days and that. So he's here tonight. Thanks for coming, Ronnie. And Pete Malloy, all the way down from his mansion on the Central Coast, and that, to sign a few autographs for all his fans tonight. So that was great. But yeah, so it's. I don't know what to say in that. I said to somebody down at Phillip Island earlier in the year that I probably retired. I retired at 25 after spitting the dummy in England, and I had a contract with Ram Racing to race in '79 and 1980, and I got an offer to race for another team in '79 in Lotus 78s, and we'd been racing March 781s and that in the 78 series, and at the time it seemed like a good idea and that to change teams and move on. And John McDonald, who owned Ram Racing, and that said, he said, well, if you go to the other team, I'm going to sue you and that. So basically, being I think I was 24 at the time. I just turned 25, and then I just, being the brash upstart that I was, and that I just said, well, jam it up your ass, and that I said, I'm going home, and that. So I did it, but I spoke to somebody just recently, and in hindsight, it wasn't the right thing to do, and that, because I sort of conveniently forgot that John was and the guys at Ram Racing were the people who helped me during the latter part of '77 in the Chevron, because I don't know, I missed out about 4 or 5 races in the middle of the season, and John came to my aid and that, and helped me out, and we could work out of his workshops and stuff like that. So in hindsight, it wasn't the honourable thing to do, and it wasn't the right thing, but I didn't take that into account. So probably a dumb thing actually in hindsight, but anyway, it's done now. And so I retired at 25, got married I think the next year to a girl I'd met who was an Australian girl, and then I think we opened up another toy business, and that when we got back to Australia, and then in '81 they had the National Panasonic series, and Dad said, oh, I think it might be a good idea, we might do that. And I said, oh, Dad, I don't even know whether I can still drive a car or not, sort of thing. So anyway, Ivan Tyre bought my Chevron Formula 5000, and we sort of said to Ivan, well, can Bruce have a drive in the car at Lakeside, just I don't know, it was a 10 lapper or something. So anyway, we went out there and we sort of, I think I qualified in the front row. It was only it was a mixed field, it wasn't sort of field of Formula 5000, so I think Terry Hook was on pole, and so cut a long story short, Terry and I sort of come down the straight in the sort of the end of the first lap and into the second lap, and I got a good run coming onto the straight, and he, I don't know what side he was on the outside, and then going through the kink, and I wasn't going to back off, and neither was Terry, but Terry was on the wrong line sort of thing, so he went into the dirt embankment and broke both ankles or something. So Ivan didn't speak to me for about 3 months after that, so he said I should have backed off. So anyway, cut a long story short, we ended up getting a Rolt, and Ron's here tonight. Good to see you, mate. And yeah, I think Ron was lucky enough, or we were lucky enough for Ron to let us jump the queue, so we needed the car out here an X amount of time and that, so Dad got it flowing out, and I didn't win any races and that, but I think I sort of had an older head on young shoulders by that time, and then sort of realised that you could still win a series and that without sort of winning every race and that, so we ended up winning the series, and that was my I think final race until I didn't do any more races competitively. All I did was I went in '91 to do my rookie test in America for the Gold Coast Indy, and we went over to I think Firebird Raceway in Phoenix in Arizona in '91. Did my rookie test there in a Lola, and we had all the forex sponsorship all lined up for the '92 Indy series or Indy race at Surfers Paradise, and I think Friday we shook hands on a deal. They said we'd have all the contracts and that on the Monday. On Monday morning we got a call to say it was all off, and all the forex sponsorship from everywhere, taken from everywhere else, was going into the Southeast Queensland Crushers and the North Queensland Cowboys and that for rugby league, because they'd been beaten to the punch and that with the Bernie Powers Power Brewing Group and that for the Broncos and that, and they didn't want to lose out again. So on Friday we were on a high, on Monday morning we were on a low, so we never ended up doing any more racing. I think I've just done a couple of times, I think 3 times since that, in 2008, 2010, and last year in New Zealand, just probably I don't know, 20 laps, not probably more, it was more 10, 40, maybe 50 or 60 laps total in Formula 5000s, just as little invitations come in and that, so that's all I did. But in the early days and that, we started off in an Escort. Dad and I used to go out and watch the Tasman races, in particular at Lakeside, and then latterly it's Surfers Paradise. So yeah, we just used to go to the car racing, loved it, and I always sort of said to Dad, I reckon I could go all right one of these. And thinking back, I didn't do any kart racing or anything. I didn't get my licence until I was 17, and didn't have a clue what we were going to do or anything like that. But I just thought I could beat most of the guys on the track that were racing similar cars, and that didn't sort of work out all that well. I think my first race was in I think maybe November 1970 in Lakeside, and it was a production touring car race, 250 miler I think it was back in those days, and Brocky and Bond were in XU1s, Leo and Pete were in Valiant Paces I think, and then there was Falcon GTs and stuff, and I think we come third in our class in my little Escort Twin Cam, and I don't know how we finished overall, and that was probably halfway down the pack or something like that. So, but the thing was that back in those days, and that you were supposed to just have a roll cage and sort of semi-race tyres, and you were getting passed down the straight like you were parked. So not everybody had equal engines sort of thing. So then we changed over to a Formula Ford the next year. That Gary Cooper, I think we had, might have come from South Africa, somebody hadn't paid for it or something, and we bought it. Same thing happened with that. It was sort of, getting passed down the straight and everything. We before we did that and that, I think Bruce Richardson was the engine builder for us in the latter part of my Formula Ford career, and that, so he did some engines for us, and that, which were, we were a lot more competitive than that, but it was still one of those things, and that where, I just felt we were sort of, beating a dead horse sort of thing. So then we got a Formula 2 Elfin from Gary, and then I think that was Gary's own personal car, because it had a beautiful wide aluminium nose, and we took delivery of it up at Oran Park for some unknown reason. I think Gary might have been bringing a new car up in the transport, and they brought our car up, and for some reason, I can't remember, Dad let Ivan Ty drive the car at that first race meeting, and poor old Ivan crashed it. So we took it home and got it fixed up and everything. It wasn't bad, and that it was just, I think the nose was all crumbled in. We raced that for probably, I don't know, not even 12 months, and then some bright spark said, well, get a Bowen P6 and that, so we got one of those, and that was a waste of time. Then we got a Barana. I actually crashed the day that we had the Bowens sold at Surfers Paradise. I crashed it coming on the straight. So the guy who was buying it from northern New South Wales, and it got a considerably cheaper vehicle than he would have at the start of the race. And that, and then we got the Barana, which was a great little car, little 274. We did the Van Heusen series, and that was a great series. And that, I sort of started out at the start of the year and told everybody I'd kick their asses and stuff, typical, what was I, 721 or something like that. So Leo Gagan, he sort of sorted me out pretty quick, smart, and but it was a good series, and there was some great drivers in there. I remember at Hume Weir and that Alfie Costanzo was in little Alfa Mono, and God, he was just unbelievable, and that what he did in that little car. But Bobby Muir I think he had a 273 with Bob and Marge Brown sponsorship, and then it was Leo, Leffo, Bobby Skelton. It was just a myriad of great talent. It was a good series, close racing and stuff like that. I don't think I won any races and that, but it was, we sort of got a few podiums and stuff, so that was good. And then I think the next year, I think 75 sometime, and that we bought KB's 332 Lola, and we bought the rolling chassis and all the spares. And then I think Dad and Pete sort of come to an arrangement about building the engines, and I think we got the parts in from the States, and Pete built us up two engines and that, which were absolute, they were great engines. And that, I think one probably, I was saying to Warwick on the way over tonight, I think one of them, you always have if you get two engines, there's always one for some unknown reason that's better than the other one. And the first engine Pete built, it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant sort of thing. The other one was great as well, but just not, it just wasn't up to par with that first one.
It was cheaper.
So anyway, and that I think we did a few races. I think it was the Toby Lee series, I think at Oran Park and that, and then later on, the latter part of 75, and that we did maybe I think the Australia-New Zealand match race series in December in New Zealand. So that was against Kenny Smith and Graham Lawrence and maybe the guy that drove the big, what was that guy's name, Brandy?
David Oxton?
David Oxton?
No, it wasn't David Oxton, no, it was another guy, Jim somebody.
Jim Murdoch.
Jim Murdoch, yeah, that's it, yeah. Jim Murdoch, so, and then there was me and I think Paul Bernasconi in one of Max's 400s, and there was Max. I don't know why Kevin didn't come over, and that maybe his 400 hadn't been finished or something, I'm not too sure. But anyway, that was a good series, and that was my first racing outside of Australia and that. So I always remember Manfield. It was sometimes you get to a circuit and you think, oh God, I love this circuit, and you've never seen it before, but you just think, geez, I can really get into this circuit, and Manfield was one of those. And I think there was a couple of others in my time, and that I think Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch was another one, but it was for some unknown reason, I don't know, I just always went well at Manfield, and I still remember the people who run it, Rob and Wendy Lester, just absolute beautiful people. And the other thing I remember from Manfield, they had the bloody biggest strawberries selling on the side of the road coming the track. It was just unbelievable, So anyway, we got there, and we did pretty good. I think I might have won a race or something like that. The other thing that I remembered from then, there was three things from New Zealand. That was my first visit. First, it was powder flavoured milkshakes. Secondly, was it was 2 cents a litre for milk. And the third was for the guys who are old enough. You remember Fred Dagg? Yeah. And well, Fred Dagg was #1 on the hit parade or something in New Zealand with his gum boots and everything. And as soon as I got back to Australia, and then I bought I think it was a cassette in those days or something like that, and I just actually wore it out, and I thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. So then we went back in '76 to do the, I don't know, was it the Rothman series or Tasman series? Yeah, so anyway, we went back, and I've always said to people and that, like, if you were going to do the series of 4 races in New Zealand and the 4 races in Australia, if you're an Australian and you didn't bother coming over to New Zealand and then wanted to start the race at the first race here in Oran Park, you're wasting your time, and that, because the thing is that, like, after 4 races in 4 weekends, and that, by the time we got back to Australia, we were so on fire. And it was not just me, it was all the guys who raced over there, like Kenny and all those people and stuff like that. We had our eye in, we had the cars sorted and everything like that, and it was just, it's no better race series than that ever. And that, because the thing, and you look at the old days, way before Brownie and I drove in the Tasman series and those series and everything, all the guys from the Northern Hemisphere and that come out, and Graham and Jackie and Jim and Chris Amon, all those people and everything like that, the reason they come down, because you got all the racing under your belt. You couldn't race up there because it was all under snow and everything, so you might as well come down, work on your suntan, your driving, all that sort of stuff, and it should have continued, and I'm hoping one day that it will, so we don't sort of have to continue and that sort of getting V8 supercars jammed down our throats and that. So, because that was real racing, and that, like, all the things with the taxi signs taken off the top, and that they're just pretenders compared with the 5000s and that, honestly, and I don't mean any disrespect to those drivers, because they're great drivers and that, but like, driving a V8 supercar and a Formula 5000 in those days, and that's like chalk and cheese and that. So, but anyway, so we did the 4 races over there, come back, and I think I was maybe leading the series and qualified on pole and that for set the race at Oran Park, and Peter will remember this because it started pissing down with rain, and then Dad says, Pete should have called you in, and Dad and Pete had words, and then the unfortunate thing for me is that I had to drive all the way back to bloody Queensland with the old man in my ear and everything. Oh God, I tell you what, it was funny. People think it was good having your father sponsor. Yeah, it was, and that until he started giving you gobful for about 600 miles and that all the way back to Queensland. Actually, I'll tell you a funny story about the old man, which goes back a couple of years prior to that. We had this nice big Dodge Transporter, and that it was, I don't know, it was probably a 5-tonner. It had a nice big Pantech body and everything, Hobby and Toyland on the side. And I can't think what car it was. It wasn't the, I think it was the Brana actually. We were driving it, I think we might have had a race in Adelaide or something, so we went out to Goondiwindi, and then we're going to head out the back way and down and through the hay plains or something like that. I was driving, the boys had been working all night in the car. We left probably stupidly at sort of like 2 o'clock in the morning, none of us with any sleep, and the next thing I know, and then I've woken up driving across the Gundawindi town water pipe main supply after I've knocked all the bridge railings out and everything, and then it was probably 100-foot drop and they're down into some little river, whatever the river is near Gundawindi. So I've wiped out the whole right-hand side of the truck, the big bull bar, everything, so that couldn't continue. So then I've rang Dad before mobile phones, before all the stuff you had to get put through by an operator or something like that. So yeah, ring up, Dad. Sir, I'm sorry, you'll have to stop swearing, and that otherwise I could catch you. Get me my bloody son back. So yeah, cut a long story short, Dad's turned up with a little Dodge with the aluminium top and a flatback trailer. So I've copped the old man going to Adelaide all the way down and everything like that. So I tell you what, I could write a book, I could do a movie on some of the things that me and my old man went through and everything like that. I'll tell you what, it was bloody, you know, it's lucky this ear isn't this big and that from bloody, because like he always got to drive and always got the gob full and stuff like that, but he's passed away now, so God rest his soul, he's a good boy. So anyway, continuing on, we got the Tasman series out of the way in Australia. I crashed at Oran Park after I was in the lead by like 40 seconds, qualified on pole, stuck in the fence, so we missed the next race, I think maybe at Adelaide or something. I'm not too sure what the second round was. We just had to fly a new tub out, and then we did the next couple of races, which I think maybe the third one we had a radiator problem. I got burnt ankles or burnt arse or something, and then the last one I think maybe at Surfers Paradise we didn't do too bad. So then that was 76, and then 70 at the start of 70. Oh, that's right. They had I think New Zealand had already gone out of Formula 5000. That's right. And New Zealand were taking on the new Formula Pacific. So we decided to do that series. I think Dad had sold the Lola back to KB, who I think then unsold it to Martin Sampson from Magnum Wheels for Johnny Walker to drive. So we decided to do the 4 races in New Zealand series, and then once again, for the first time I should say, we turned to Ron Turnak and we got an RT1 Rolt. Another little black beauty, and we went over there and did the series in New Zealand, and that, which was 4 races, and you know, some great drivers here, and probably my favourite, and that was Keke Rosberg, and who I've got to say that him and I become great mates during that time. That geez, he was a good driver, and you got to say that, like some of the guys that I've raced against, like him, Brownie, Jonesy, probably they're sort of like probably the top 3 and everything like that. Not necessarily in that order, but he was just he was in another level to all of us and that over there. But you know, as I've said to my kids over the years, and that it's no good going out and sort of winning every race and whatever you're doing, whether it's triathlons or cycling or whatever, or car racing. You've got to get your ass kicked in that to sort of bring you up to the next level. If you're going to go out and get beaten, or you're going to win every race, and that's not the way to go. And that you've got to learn from somebody who's going quicker than you, and then hopefully they drag you up to their level. And Keke was like that. I think I was about to drive at the end of that series after, swallowing his stones over 4 races and everything like that, rather than sort of, just toddling around in midfield and that. So. And then after that series was over, I think Dad bought VDS's B37 Chevron, which we took to England, and the deal was, Dad said, I'll buy the car, we bought all the spares, he said, I'll send it over there, pay you a ticket, and he said, that's it. There's no more money, don't ring me for 1 cent, and that sort of thing. So, all right, okay, no problem. So we went over there, Ronnie, me, the Chevron. We bought a bus. I don't know where the bloody bus come from. It was a bloody red thing, and I still remember I don't know when it was, March sometimes, after we picked the Chevron up from wherever we got it from, and bloody sitting outside Bolton at the Chevron factory in the middle of the night, bloody, I tell you what, if I've ever been bloody colder, I can't remember when, and that, because Jesus, it was cold. There was no heating in this thing. It was, I don't know, it was like a 1950s bus or something, but the back opened up and there was ramps, and I think we had little bunks up the front or something like that, but it wasn't pleasant, I'll give you the tip. So anyway, we went up there. I think we had to get some parts, or they've let us work there or something, I can't remember. So and then we started the race. So like I hadn't seen any of the tracks or anything like that, and I can't even remember why we decided to go over there, sort of thing, to England. But I think probably because I'd had an offer the year before which I took up, and in hindsight wrongly, Teddy Theodore Racing and Sid Taylor had sort of offered me a deal and that to race in the States in '76 and be Alan Jones's teammate. So, you know, being whatever age I was, and that '76 I was 23, I thought, you know, king of the kids, and I'll go over there and show them what to do. But the car was, you know, I think really that if I would have had, you know, Ronnie and Malloy with me and taken my own car over there, I would have done considerably better. But we had a 330, it had like a second-hand engine, it was not good, and then they gave me a bloody, I don't know what it was a 70, I don't know, 75 or 76B March, and that which wasn't the most pleasant car to drive. Having said that, Jonesy absolutely bloody nailed them at Watkins Glen in the rain, and it's the first time that I've ever seen somebody, because I was in the pits, because he'd crashed his car, being number one, he got my car, I got to sort of carry the sandwiches, so to speak. So anyway, it was absolutely bucketing down. It's the first time I've ever seen a driver drive a whole race off the line. Because I said to him, I said, why'd you do that? He said, well, you have a look at that. On the line, it was all running water and everything. Off the line, it was drying and stuff like that. So he just absolutely obliterated them. The next race, I think, was Road America. He got a new Lola. I got the March back, and then I rode it off in practice. And then I think we sort of come to an arrangement. I'd had enough by then, and we went home, and I got back into my Lola and done some races here, and then the next year, and that, I think that was the reason I went to England. And having said that, I think in hindsight, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, I think I should have went to England in '76 rather than sort of wasting the time in the States. But you know, it's you know, when you get offered a drive and all expenses paid, your teammate to, you know, Jonesy and stuff like that, you think, well, geez, I think, you know, it's got to, and the thing is that Sid Taylor, God bless his soul, and that he's picked some great drivers over the years, you know, like, you know, Jonesy, and then Tony Bryce and Brian Redman, and, you know, you have a look, I think they're doing a book on Sydney at the moment, and like, I don't know, I wouldn't know 25% of all the drivers that he's picked over the years, but I tell you what, if you have a read of the book, if it ever comes out, there'll be some good bloody drivers in there. So you know, he was a good talent spotter and stuff like that, but you know, I was just probably in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'll leave it at that. But you know, England made up for it in '77. It was, you know, it was a good year, even though I sort of run out of money in the middle period, and that we had some good races, and you know, I was the quickest 5,000 over there, and there was, you know, Trimmer was in the Surtees, and I think Derek Bell and Formula One Penske, and you know, they were year-old cars, and that, but we were sort of, you know, I got 3 or 4 pole positions and a few fastest laps. I didn't win any races that year, but I gave everybody a hurry up, and then at the end of the year, we won the Grovewood Award, and that which was nice, and then and then '78 I got an offer from Ram Racing to race for them, which was John McDonald, and that's oh, there you go, Grovewood Award, there we go. So just, is that going to stay there for a little second?
Yes.
I just well, we all know Nigel. Nigel got an honourable mention. Somebody said to me just the other day, they said, oh, back Nigel. I said, yeah, but I said, just hang on a second, I won the Grovewood, he got an honourable mention, but I said, I didn't win a world championship in Formula 1, so I said, well, leave it at that. I think Stephen South, I got told many years ago, I think lost a leg in an accident or something, and that Philip Bullman's got a radio segment or something somewhere up in the Midlands. The Boy Wonder in the middle, and who's that guy there? Is that Ian Flux? Oh, I'm not too sure, I can't remember who that guy. No, it's not Ian.
David Leslie?
David Leslie, sorry, yeah. Yeah, that was, and look, the thing is, that was something that all the journos and that, they were sterling, and that's, gee, I'll tell you what, I wish I was that thin now. I think I was about bloody 65 kilos then. So, but anyway, and look, it was a good night, but like, you know, 77, you won £1,000, which, you know, it was big money in those days and that, but these days the equivalent, I think, you know, it's like about 50,000 or something like that. So, but, you know, everything goes up in little, or big increments over the years and that, so. That's it? Right, okay. All right, well, back to the 1978, so yeah, so I took up John's offer at Ram Racing, and Guy Edwards was my teammate, and I've got to say that, like, just jumping up, you know, many years and that to sort of like current times and that, like, Guy's not in a good way, he's in a home, he's had several strokes, and you know, he's about 150 kilos and not in a good way at all, sort of thing. So I got told that last year, which was not nice. But you know, back in the day, back in '78 and prior to that, that guy was just the ultimate sponsorship getter. There was no one better. Like in our cars just alone, in the Ram Racing thing, we had people sort of say, "What's Titbits?" Well, Titbits is a bit like Pix or Poster out here. But he was the first person in that to actually you know, he'd go to Titbits and sort of say, well, you know, give me so many pages, I can sell that advertising to Ultramar or whoever else was there, and then so you know, it was all this backwards and forwards contra, but like he always come out smelling of roses. Like he was the guy that bought Encyclopedia Britannica to motor racing sponsorship. We had Cannier darts on our car, Titbits Ultramar, we had, what else was there, what's that green and white, the Chevron, Mopar. We had Mopar, like we've got Ford Cosworth engines, when we've got Mopar sponsorship with Chrysler parts and everything. The guy, he was just absolutely brilliant, but the amount of sponsorship that a lot of people didn't know that he had organised for Formula 1 cars and stuff like that, he was just unbelievable. Like I remember I went to, I think it was '78, we went to Le Mans and he was driving, and I got a little sneak in there. They had an open cockpit something or other with a 3.9 Cosworth in it. And you know, we went out sort of, you know, sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon to start your practice. And I said, well, what about, you know, can't we start sort of early in the day? You're going to be racing for sort of like 12 hours through the night. You've got to get used to the dark. And I remember, like, we only did 5 laps or something like that, and you'd come onto Mulsanne Straight, and there'd be little pinholes in your rear view mirror and that. And by the time you got to the end of the straight, you'd have Jabouille and whoever else was in the Renaults, and these bloody great Cibi, you know, spotlights. It was just like, they were like kangaroo shooters and the whole, like, you knew they were coming up. You knew they were coming up behind you and that, because all your peripheral vision out both sides was like, you know, somebody had set fire to the trees either side. It was just incredible. Like, it's so off-putting, and like you can just imagine just what it's like in that, just to drive, you know, just to drive down the highway and somebody's got high beam. Well, you can imagine like high beam like 100 times. Like, these things were just unbelievable and that. So, but yeah, it was never my cup of tea, and I must admit, and you know, it's I don't know. Like, I admire the guys who do it, and they still do it today. But I think really that I was just a sort of out and out open wheeler guy, and sort of, you know, for better or for worse, I sort of stuck at that. And I look at my good mate over in England, Mike Wiles, who's made a bloody good quid out of driving anything and everything over there, and very well over a lot of years. And he's, you know, he's probably getting on to 10 years older than myself and stuff like that, and he's still kicking butt over there, so good on him and that. But I think I pigeonholed myself too much, and it was open wheelers or nothing. I never had any interest to go into touring cars or anything like that. But anyway, 78 sort of didn't pan out too bad, and that we had a win at Mallory Park after sort of like a trying race, and it was funny in that because like Mallory Park, you come down onto the straight and you've got a little left-hand dipper. Back in those days, as a lot of you guys will know, and that you had the accelerator pedal and that sort of riveted to the floor. Well, unbeknownst to me and the team, and every time I sort of bottomed out coming onto the straight, and it was wearing the rivets away and stuff like that. And with about 15 or, I don't know, 10, 15 laps to go, I kept getting sort of intermittent throttle. I'd get plenty, and then I'd get nothing and stuff like that. I had trimmer up my arse in a E30s or, McLaren it was, and I think, Jesus, how am I going to keep this guy at bay? And I didn't know what was going on. And you haven't got all the technical shit that you've got these days with bloody computers and people yapping in your ear and stuff like that. So anyway, I thought, oh, well, I'm just going to keep going till the bloody thing breaks and stuff like that. So, thank God it hung on until the end. But it seemed to sort of every time I needed that power and that it was there for me sort of thing. But you just imagine the thing's bloody floating around in the tub, and you get a bit of throttle and then nothing, and then you sort of, you'd be looking around, and anyway, it's just another crazy old race story and stuff. So at the end of 78 and that, I think it was actually 77, my former wife, she and her twin sister won some beauty contests and they come over. I fell in love with her, and then I decided to move back and get married, and that at the end of 79 after John and I couldn't come to an arrangement about sort of me moving on to John Cooper's team. And as it turned out, John Cooper's team folded, and I would have been out of a drive probably a third of the way through the 79 series anyway. So, but as I said a little bit earlier, that I feel now I'm older and wiser and stuff like that. I feel that I didn't do the right thing by the guy. And I think I said that in an interview at Phillip Island this year. And when I think back, he helped me in 77, and I didn't do anything to help him in 78. At the end of 78 to go into 79 with everything at my feet. So anyway. I think that's. I don't think there's anything else in that. I think I went over and done my rookie test, as I said, in Firebird and stuff like that. But that's basically about it, I think.
Dave's got some photos he's going to show. You might want to comment on that one. First made around that.
Yeah.
You may or may not remember when you went to Pocono.
Oh, right.
In 76 in Sydney's car.
Yeah.
I can't remember the full layout of the circuit now, but there was one part of the circuit you went onto the infield.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And you were supposed to do a right turn and carry on through the infield. You opted instead to do a left turn, and you came back around onto the main part of the circuit and faced oncoming cars. That must have been fairly exciting for you and everyone else there.
Thanks for reminding me. It was that was our first race in North America. I still you weren't. I don't think you were racing for VDS in Brandy, were you? Were racing for Bob Bay or
Bob Bay.
Yeah, the Talon, right? Yeah, for Jack. Yeah, but I tell you what, the one thing that sticks in my mind, I think it's probably nothing to do with me, but I remember VDS turned up with their 4 cars, and they had this rider rental truck. And sort of the roller doors going up, and there's 12 brand new Moran Chevys in shrink wrap on pallets. Oh. And I thought, geez, what are you up against? But then I think Jonesy and I finished 9th and 10th in the race, and that Teddy Paulette and Peter Gethin were behind us, so I thought, well, the Moran Chevys wouldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding, but it didn't take old, what's the old fella's name? Rudy? Didn't take him long to turn up at Francoise's doorstep and that with the checkbook and order a dozen new Chaparral Chevys.
Right, mate. Just sorry to butt in. With regard to those Moran engines, they were pretty much like grenades. And when we left a workshop in Indiana, where we were based out of, we left more than a dozen or so of the things stuck in a corner of the workshop. We put canvas and stuff over them, so the people who had the shop didn't really know we'd left them there. We just drove on off and left them because we'd gone to chaparral engines by then. That's the Chevron at Oran Park. And
Who's driving that?
yeah, that's just to show that I was in that car before you.
That's why they invented calendars to time him.
That's Count Rudy van der Straten in the top left-hand corner with the blue hat. And that's Steve Horn.
Is that his?
That looks like Monet, yeah.
Yeah.
Steve Horn and some other long-haired
Who's
kid.
that? Who's that little guy?
Yeah, there's a male model there in the black cap. And that was a nice little car, that Chevron, it really was. There's Glenn Dix, what's that, Australian Grand Prix somewhere?
Yeah, the reason I put that one in is because you'd always maintained that it was worthwhile getting last place in a Formula V qualifying session just to get the flag from Glenn Dix.
I tell you what, that guy was, I think from the first time I raced over there, and I think it's two stories I'll tell you from South Australia. One was Glenn Dix, whether he started a race or finished a race, and I said to Gary on the phone and that, even if you finish last with Glenn waving the finishing flag, and that he was just about the same speed as you going down the straight, flicking the flag. He was unbelievable. It made you feel, 10 feet tall. The other thing, and that from South Australia, which I think we first went over there to race in maybe the 73 or something, 74 in the Formula 2 cars, and I think it was maybe Johnny Walker or one of those guys, and that had 5AD City State, and that was a radio station over there. The other sponsor they had was Noah's Ark Bar, which was a particular hotel chain. Well, Noah's was a hotel chain. The Ark Bar was where we stayed when we raced at Adelaide. And the first Dad's come down, another Dad story, and I think the first night we stayed there, we got down there on Thursday or something like that. Dad drove, and we had, I think the first night we had there, we had South Australian whiting, which I've got to say was bloody absolutely beautiful. It was. Dad liked it so much he ordered it for breakfast. We had it for every meal. We had bloody South Australian whiting for brekkie. We weren't there for lunch because we were out of the track, but we had a double serving at night time sort of thing. We looked like a bloody South Australian whiting by the time we left, but I'll tell you what, it was good fish. So, yeah, but no, he was good old Glenn, and as you would have probably seen in the video of the 78 Rothman series, and that he was just so precise, you could sort of count back every time and he'd be absolutely spot on, and that with his starting procedure and that, so. That's it.
You're going to run through all the other ones?
Which one?
Did you want to run through the...
Which one, Gary?
I tell you what, I wish I was half as good as this guy on the bloody computer with photos and that. I'm bloody hopeless. I wish they would. I'll tell you one thing I wish they would have had in our day, that they'd still be looking at them today. What are those little cameras they have in the car, GoPro?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, like, you make your eyes water if they had GoPros in the 5000s in the old days.
Just run through some of that.
There we go. Brownie, me, Graham Lawrence, Teddy Collette and KB. That was in New Zealand last year at where I got to drive Paul Sazran's 332, which was great. That's me. I don't know where that is.
I'll take it off. I'll do it this way. Okay. There you go.
That looks to me, with the way the openness of the track may be, Wigram, Brownie?
I think send it.
Where,
Jimmy Holmes sent it.
yeah, alright, okay, we'll go with Brownie and Sandown. I don't know where that is, but that's the early days because that's the bloody Griffin helmet. Same again. That was when I first started. I had that. That's in that was when I maybe our first race, Pete, and that at Oran Park. That one looks like I'm praying there. That's after Bottom Bend at Brands Hatch. That's Tony Trimmer behind me. That's 77. I put that on pole now. but that just reminds me of something that Jonesy taught me. Like I was living with him and Beverly in '77 at Cromwell Avenue at Highgate, and the start-finish line of Brands Hatch is actually off camber, like this. And we were having breakfast before I went out to or down to Brands Hatch, and Jonesy said, "I'll give you a tip." He said, "When you start, if you get on the front row, but particularly on pole," he said, "always face the arse of the car up the hill." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, because it's a neck, you know," he said, "it's off camber." He said, "As soon as you flatten it," he said, "the car will come down the hill." So he said, if you start straight, then all of a sudden you're pointing that way. I tell you what, I made the bloody most brilliant start you've ever seen in your life. Only second to sort of 78 in the Chevron at Service Paradise. That was my best ever, but that one at Brands Hatch was pretty bloody good. That's it. Oh Jesus, is that Manfield?
Yeah, 1976, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's the maybe the Rothmans race over there, or whatever they called it. So that's me. Looks like Maxie. Is that Kenny?
Ken Smith, Lawrence,
Graham Lawrence, and I don't know, maybe Jim Murdoch there. I don't know who the rest of them are, sort of thing. But that was a good circuit. This bloody thing here, that's John Cannon. That car was a piece of crap going around the corners, but it was an absolute jet of the straight line. That's at Sandown. That bloody thing fell apart. Airbox dropped off, this, that, everything else. I bloody blew up trying to catch him or keep up with him going down the straight to get enough, you know, to get him under brakes and everything like that. So yeah, he's passed on now, John, and I think he was in an experimental plane crash or something. Somebody told me in California. So that's the same race as John. That's Johnny Walker, me, Leto by the looks of it. I don't know. I can't recognise anybody else, that sort of thing, a bit blurry, but that would, like as I said to Brandy tonight, like back in those days, that there was no rolling starts. We started off, and it was funny in that when I first got into the car with Pete in '75 out at Oran Park, we went out testing and stuff like that. He said, just go out, just keep an eye on the instruments and make sure all the temperature, all the needles are facing the right direction. Anyway, I've gone out, and I think it was just a short circuit, and I thought, oh God, how bloody good, how much power has this bloody thing got? Oh God, I've died and gone to heaven and everything. So anyway, I've done the 10 laps and kept an eye on everything. It was all facing the right direction. And then there's a famous photo of Pete whispering something in my ear, and I was saying to him, I said, mate, how much bloody power has this thing got? He said, mate, wait till we give you full throttle. You're only on half throttle. So that's me at Mallory Park at the hairpin. That's Lola, and that who had a big crash at I think up at Alton Park and that. But that I won one of the races the next year at that circuit. It's quite good. It was a little bit like no, it's not. I called it probably the same length, but had a few undulations. But it's a really nice track, and I think it was this year, and that was '77. James Hunt was '76 world champion. This race meeting, and I think a further one at Brands Hatch, they had a sort of like a Radio 1 James Hunt Fun Day sort of thing, with all the promotion and everything. James was good for another 25,000 extra spectators, no problems at all. So, and there's a photo, I don't know whether we've got it here, but there's a photo of me and James I'm on pole, I think it was maybe at Brands Hatch, and he's sitting on the corner of the car with the guy who's interviewing me. But that was a good little car. Like, you know, people sort of say, oh, what was your favourite? Well, I've probably got to say the Lola, but on certain tracks, that car was absolute dynamite. And you know, I tell you what, I said to Ronnie earlier, and that the guy who owns that now paid $480,000 US for it about 18 months ago, and that's so. And it was the only one ever built because Derek Bennett, who owned Chevron cars at the time, when I went over there to race, I think he was killed in the hang glide. He was big on hang gliding, and he got killed in the hang glider accident and that. So, and I think it was actually going to be a Formula One car, and I think Count van der Straten went up and sort of seen it sitting in the corner and said, "Oh, I want that as a Formula 5000," because they were going to buy a couple of BT24s or BT28s or something. He liked this, and Derek said, "Oh no, you know, I don't want to do it." And anyway, the checkbook turned out and sort of, you know, then just kept out in the O's, and they ended up buying it with all the spares. And I remember when we bought the spares off VDS, like honestly, it was another probably 2 cars except for the tubs. That's how many spares they had: wheels, noses, airboxes, wings, everything, but not the tubs and that. But I can't remember ever crashing the thing, but maybe I wasn't driving quick enough on that. But it was a great car. And it was a good series, that Shell Sport series over there, and it really was competitive. And I just picked this. I was lucky. I think I sort of picked up circuits pretty quick, smart. But you know, I got little help-alongs with people like Alan and stuff like that. The other thing I remember at Brands Hatch that he told me, and that is, I can't remember all the names of the corner. You come the straight right-hander, down the dip, up around.
Dingledale.
Yeah, all right, and then you come down like into bottom bend. I can't remember the name of that corner. But Jonesy said to me, he said, "Don't try and go from second to third." He said, "Just change it to fourth." He said, "You'll have enough torque and just keep it flat going through the thing." Well, I tell you what, he was absolutely spot on in that, because like I held a lap record there in the 5000 for quite a few years, 42 seconds dead, and nobody come near me for quite a while, particularly in 5000s, but even in the old Formula One cars and that. So, you know, it's getting a few pointers from people like that certainly helped, that's for sure. That's Vern in the Eagle, I think. Yeah. That's me. I forgot I even drove that bloody car. Was in I don't know, it was the Elephant at Calder, and I don't know what the name of the series was, and I think John, what was the guy's name from Ansett Racing and that, John, I can't think of his name, but anyway, he rang me up, and I don't know, somebody stubbed their toe or something, and so they said, "Oh, do you want to come down and drive the thing?" And I'd never driven it before, and I probably, in all honesty, I didn't do the car justice and that, but you know, you just get thrown in the thing on Friday afternoon, you'd sort of flown in that morning, and you know, I think we sort of started pretty close up to the front and stuff like that, but it wasn't what I was used to in the 5000. Plus I'd hopped out of, you know, the year before I had the Rolt RT4 and stuff like that, so you'd hopped out of a ground effects car into this one. So, you know, probably, you know, wasn't doing me or the car justice, I suppose, and that. So, but anyway, it was just a one-off run. I can't even remember where I... Is that mine? That's not mine.
I don't know. It was for interest more than anything.
No, I've never had, I don't think I can honestly say I've never had an accident that bad. Yeah, that's the first March that I had. That's the 761, I think, in 78. So, and then they upgraded me to the same as Guy's car, which was well, they call it a 781, but technically it wasn't. I think it was, you know, I don't know, it was different, 777 or something with new bodywork or something. So that's me. That looks like at Mallory Park maybe again. That's Emilio de Vallota in the McLaren M23, and this looks like some little guy in a Chevron maybe. That series there, they had Formula Ones, which both those cars are, and they also had Formula 2 cars as well, and that's my teammate. Oh,
Sorry.
That's my teammate, Guy Edwards. So that was the newer car, that was the later model, and then that was me behind him there, and that's. But you can see what I mean. See Canier darts, Titbits, Mopar, Ultramar cigarettes, Ultramar oil. Sorry, STP. Like he's just. But I tell you what. One thing I do just remembered now, and that sort of talking about him, he had this I think it was a 450 SEL Mercedes, and like, oh God, I tell you what, like the mechanics sort of said he stunk, and that he never got his bloody race suits dry cleaned or anything. They just got thrown in the boot of this Mercedes, and then they get pulled out for the next race. Oh, it was disgusting. It was, that sort of thing. So. anyway, so where's this?
That was Pocono again.
Oh, Pocono, good.
We won't go back.
Oh, there we go. That's me and Guy Edwards, and this guy here, this is Val Musetti, and he was just a part-time racer, and his mum owned a really famous, I can't think of the name of the restaurant in Soho or something, like an Italian restaurant. It was unbelievable. But this was just a part-time thing for Val. Val was a stuntman, and a very famous one, and that, you know, done a lot of the Bond movies and all that sort of stuff. And we become good mates over the, you know, the couple of years that I raced. He was a good guy and that sort of thing. So yeah, I haven't seen that photo for a long time now. So ooh, that's Johnny.
Sandown.
Yeah, Sandown. That's me last year at Hampton Downs, yeah. So I got invited over there because they had a big Formula 5000 festival, and I hadn't been. Oh God, I think the last time I went there was probably '81 for a boat show or something like that, like to New Zealand. So I thought, I'm one of these people. I get invites. I'll definitely, I'll be there. And as the time gets closer to it, I think, oh Jesus, why did I bloody get into this? But then once I get there, I have the best time. And that, but it was fantastic. I sort of like, you know, I caught up with, you know, naturally Brownie, who I see more than probably anybody, but also, you know, Gavin and Gina over there, and that, who are good friends who I met through Brownie, and that who were originally from Christchurch. But anyway, they said, look, we don't know whether we'll have a car for you, but you know, we'd love you to come over, and they put us up, and KB come over with me as my chaperone. That's a scary thought in itself. So anyway, we went over, and I was supposed to be driving one of the 430s of, what's that guy's name, David somebody? David, that's right, yeah. But anyway, I think Brownie sort of got seniority over me, and then some other guy was going to, well, it was somebody else's other car, the white one and that, so I think Teddy got a drive in that, and anyway, they sort of said, so I got there on the Friday, KB and I flew over on Thursday, I got there Friday, and you know, it doesn't look good. All right, okay, no problem. So anyway, they went up and down the pit thing after we'd all gone home, and Paul Zazrin, who I'd never met in my life before, and who owns, him and his wife own this car, he said, oh look, I'd love to have Bruce in the car and everything. So anyway, I met him for the first time on the Saturday morning, and we just thought we were going to, or Brownie and I both thought we were only going to get, you know, 4 laps behind a pace car or something like that, but they were silly enough to give us a couple of 10-lap, you know, run-arounds and that on Saturday, and then another 2 10-lappers on Sunday. I thought, Jesus, I've died and gone to heaven. so I got into the thing, and the last time I'd driven a 5000 was in anger, or semi-anger, was, I think Brandon and I drove at the Tasman Revival thing. I think I was in one of Stan Redmond's cars, that Tropicana car. And Brandy was in your old Lola, I think that guy in America owned, and that, so it was good. But it's, you know, you put the helmet on, and then you sort of, before you sort of, you know, the engine starts up, you think, oh God, you idiot, you know. But and I'll tell you what, the worst thing I feel, I think, fuck, I don't want to make a fool of myself, you know. And that, you know, I just don't want to make a fool of myself and that, because I just want to get a big hole and the earth swallow me up or something like that, because I couldn't bear it. Anyway, Paul and his wife, Gay, and their mechanic, I tell you what, you couldn't meet nicer people. They were lovely, and they just made me feel so welcome. His seat, it wasn't comfortable for me, and I was probably a bit beefier than him, so we pulled that out and we just put some foam down my back, and I felt a lot more comfortable. Not the most comfortable I've ever been in a race car, but comfortable enough. So anyway, we went out, and I went and watched Kenny in the morning practice for the official race, and I sort of had a look at his lines, went around, because it's a bloody good track and that now. Well, it was then. It's even better now, because the guy from VIP Pet Food paid 14 million for it, and he's extending it. He's put new pit things in. Oh, it's unbelievable. And that's anyway, we went out and you know, just got faster as the weekend. Like, they had my bloody name on the tyres and all that sort of stuff. And they were, you know, by the time the weekend was over, I just used the old ones. But you know, I think Brown and I would have qualified in the top sort of 10 of the people racing there, and we sort of just, we just come out of retirement for a small period of time. So I didn't crash it, I didn't spin it, neither did Brownie and that. So we didn't make fools of ourselves. So now this car here, this is probably the only one in the world. It was after I won the Grovewood Award in '77. I think John McDonald from RAM got a phone call from Eric Broadley from Lola. This car here, I think, is either a T550 or a T570, and it had an R-Bath engine in the back, which bloody revved like 14,000 revs. It's a Formula 2 car, and it was Lola's first attempt at ground effects, apparently. This is Snetterton, and it was a cold, miserable. But honestly, it made Calder on a bad day feel like the Gold Coast. It was just honestly, not a good place to be in a race car. So anyway, you think, well, the guy's good enough to. And the thing was that it was to. I think there was a race the following year, a big Formula 2 race at Thruxton, and back in those days, like '77, if you go back through the records, there's some Formula 2 races over there in those years, and that were just unbelievable. I can't remember the drivers, and Giacomelli, I think, was one of them, but they were at the BMW marches, and there's some bloody good racing. Anyway, this was what we were going to do that for that series in '78 sometime, just a one-off at Thruxton. And I always seem to go pretty well at Thruxton for some unknown reason. Like when I look back through the record things, I put it on pole there a couple of times in my Chevron and stuff, so I must have liked the track a little bit more than I thought. So anyway, we went out there, and the track dried out quite considerably, but there was sort of, before the pits there is, I think there's a sort of like a chicane called Russell. I thought, I was getting braver and braver, and I thought, I think I can just about take this flat out. Well, yeah, you can, as long as you don't get your wheel in the wet, and that I'm offline. So anyway, I got it offline and stuck it in the fence at sort of full throttle, and so rode the car off, and my balls were like bloody footballs and everything like that, because you got the 6-point harness. I had bloody bluey purple stripes down here. Oh God, I wasn't feeling too good. I was even feeling worse when we got back to the workshop with the mechanics and everything, and they pulled up the back door of the transporter and stuff like that. And John, what was John? I'm going to say McCormack, just John McDonald. John McDonald, yeah, sorry, yeah. So John McDonald, and that's sort of. Eric's not going to like this. So anyway, I didn't get an invite back, sort of thing, after they fixed the car. So that was my European Formula 2 career over and out in a day. That's the same car. The one problem they did have with the engine, which Mick Ralph, he was the R, and it was Ralph and McDonald, so that was Ram Racing. Apparently it kept just bloody bursting gaskets and everything like that, and spurting oil all over the joint. And the thing, I'd never been in a car that revved this hard. It was just unbelievable. And anyway, Mick had a look around, and I don't know, I'm not an engineer or an engine person by any means, but Pete might sort of correct me if I'm wrong, but apparently it didn't have any breathing or a breather or something in there. Anyway, they've sort of tapped some little breather into the top of the thing, and we never had an issue with it while we were doing the testing at Snedden before I stuck it in the fence. So, but I tell you what, it was unbelievable, the revs the thing pulled, and that you're just waiting for it. But it was reliable, and that's so that's most old 600D Alpha, which we got off Gary. That was Gary's own car. In '73 we got that. No, I did pretty good in that. Yeah, well, when I say pretty good, like it was just mainly local race. I think we might have crept down to Oran Park or something. It was mainly Lakeside and Surface Paradise and that. But it was a good little car, and like considerably more power than my Formula Ford and that. So. Well, that was just before the guy took delivery of it, and that it's Paradise, the Bowen P6, and that. So I don't know what happened, got offline, but the guy who took the photos, there's some bloody good photos because it looked like it was on fire because all the steam was coming out, but we'd had rain the week before and off the track and then down the gutter before the Armco, and that you had a sort of big gully of water, so you went in there and it was sort of all the steam and everything on the exhaust pipes, and that sort of made it look more spectacular. So that's back at in the Chevron in '77, and that in somewhere in England. I don't know exactly where, maybe Alton Park, and that's so.
How long? You went a quarter of an hour? Another quarter of an hour? Okay.
That's it. All right. Oh, whoa. Throttle stuck. Put sand down. So somebody said to me last night or the other day on Facebook and said, "Oh, somebody punted you off there." I said, "Well, no, actually, and I had a throttle stuck open at the end of the old pit straight there, and so anyway, that was. They said, "Oh," another friend got on and sort of said, "Oh, how are your ankles?" Thank Christ, all right. And that's so. But yeah, that was. It was all over Red Rover for that, but it's not a good thing.
4 minutes.
I think maybe maybe Manfield. I'm not too sure. And that's a good photo. That. Like I know it must have been New Zealand somewhere because that was SACS, which is South Auckland Cargo Services or something. So, but it's amazing, and that when you have a look at the cars in the old days, and that the big stickers we had on for Fly TAA for free flights or something like that. Like they wouldn't give you a sticker like that in Formula on the inside of your wheel these days, sort of thing. So Malloy always got plenty. He was in pole position, old Peter, and that sort of thing.
That's how you pay the bills.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, get a bigger violin. All right, that's it. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for coming along here today. I do recall on a couple of occasions, at least Ivan and Ty, telling me that your dad, Big Cole, rang him up and said, "I've got this Chevron I want to get rid of." And Ivan thought it was a huge joke. He reckoned he only paid about 12 grand for the car.
Yeah, I think he might have paid a little bit more than that, but I think what happened was, and that it was. I don't know, I think it might have been sitting in their bloody garage, at Mum and Dad's garage at Wallonda Street, and I think Mum had given Dad such a gobful and said, "Just get rid of this bloody thing," So anyway, poor old Ivan was the one who sort of, got the Guernsey to buy it. But hey, having said that, I think Dad might have sold it all up, and that for maybe 20 tops. When he sold it to, I can't remember the guy in England, he got...
Simon Hatfield drives.
Yeah, well, I think Simon, who's the guy? There's another guy. Some other guy bought it, or he was the middleman for Simon Hadfield. They paid Ivan 120,000 Australian dollars for it. So, and then Simon Hadfield done it up, and I've got to say, like the thing from what I've seen, and that it's like it was as good, if not better than new. They done a beautiful job, and the guy who owns it now is a fellow I think by the name of Neil Glover. Somebody on his behalf contacted me last year and asked to send over the photos of the car in the light blue colours, the Bill Patterson colours, because he was going to get a new set of bodywork done and bring it out to Phillip Island this year. And from when Warwick and I and Johnny Walker and a few of the Gossi and those guys went down to Phillip Island this year, apparently some middleman got involved and tried to sort of, well, I'll take some of that money and here you get so much, and Neil Glover said, "Oh, look, it's all too hard." But after seeing what happened at Phillip Island with all the, the great racing and stuff like that, Neil, I've had word, I've never spoken to Neil Glover myself and that, but apparently he's said he'd like to come down next year and race the car. So whether it comes down in the Bill Patterson colours, which it may do, or whether he just keeps it in the VDS colours that he races it in England, I'm not too sure on that. But it's it's just great to see not only that car, but like Brandy's old one, like some of the ones in the States, like the guys. Yeah, it's a credit to them. The money they spent and the preparation and everything like that, it's just unbelievable. And to see some of the cars, even Paul's car, like it's a credit to him and his wife and that the work, they're just normal people. They've got a wire wheel business and stuff like that, it's just, and they're just so passionate. And you know, just to finish off, I just said to Warwick on the way out tonight, like, the thing that really pisses me off, and that, pardon my French, in Australian motor racing, like everybody's bloody, you know, seems to be beholden to V8 supercars. Like it's all the grassroots people that bloody keep all these people in ivory towers and cams in bloody, you know, in suits and shit like that, you know, rather than sort of, you know, support all the little guys and everything like that, because, you know, it's those guys. I haven't got anything against V8 supercars and stuff like that, but I just think they should sort of spread the love around a little bit more, rather than sort of, you know, just think, oh, just that's the be all and end all and that, because, like, you know, without guys like you and a whole myriad of people around Australia and everything like that, cams would be fucking nothing.